Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing Episode 30, Sparks Fly for Magnemite. The episode begins with Ash and the gang arriving in a town that is polluted as absolute fuck, both in its water and its air, being called Grindy City. Due to being an entirely factory-run place, as Misty finds in her brochure. The gang then directs their attention to Pikachu, who seemingly seems sick in some way, and is letting out electricity out of its cheeks. So Ash picks him up, putting on the rubber gloves from the first episode so he doesn't accidentally get shocked, and rushes him to the Pokemon Center as Team Rocket watch from the sewers. In addition to a separate mysterious figure. Team Rocket then decide to do their motto, stating their plan to try and capture Pikachu while it was feeling weak, as it seemed. But they can't finish their motto due to the sewers stinking so bad that they can't focus on anything. And honestly, what do you expect? Like, they try and make it out that it's because of the pollution, but a sewer would just smell bad anyway, wouldn't it? Anyways, Meowth has a solution, being scuba tanks that block out the bad air for Jesse and James, and a full-on container that does the same thing for him. Meowth then informs him of his plan to stay behind and pump them oxygen through the oxygen masks while they go deep into the water so that they can get to the mainland and try and steal Pikachu. Jesse and James obviously refuse this, not wanting to do all the work while Meowth just lays back and did nothing. But Meowth then gives them a shock somehow. I don't know how the fuck he does this. It's in his little contraption there, but it's like a Five Nights at Freddy's level shock thing from Sister Location, and this motivates them enough as they dive into the water, obliging to Meowth. Ash and the gang then arrive at the Pokemon Center and explain to the Nurse Joy their situation, but the Nurse Joy is too tired since it's so late, and is just like, your Pikachu just has a cold, bro. It'll be fine. Ash is obviously pissed off at this, comparing her to all the other Nurse Joys who were eagerly ready to help Pokemon at any hour, but this Nurse Joy seemed to be a useless bitch. Maybe that's why the town was so polluted, because no one gives a shit about anything. Nurse Joy responds to Ash's anger by simply reconfirming her theory, stating that Pikachu's cheeks emitting electricity was a sign of a cold, and assured him that Pikachu would simply get better in the morning if it stayed at the center overnight. So, okay, maybe this Nurse Joy isn't a total bitch. So, Ash agrees to let Pikachu stay there for the night, and brings him to the Pokemon Center's intensive care unit. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of Grimer are in the water in the city, which is presumably why the water is so toxic and poisonous, due to fucking a literal poison Pokemon being in the water. But all the Grimer essentially huddle up and block the flow of the hydroelectric power plant, which cuts the power in the entire city. Which includes the power supply to Team Rocket's oxygen tanks, much to Team Rocket's dismay, as they then struggle to breathe. The power is also out in the Pokemon Center, leaving all the Pokemon who needed life support in vital danger. This leads our gang, always wanting to be the heroes as they're the protagonists, to want to do something to help all the Pokemon that were in danger, so they decide to head off to the power plant to find the source of the problem. Pikachu begs to come along, but Ash and the gang deny, wanting him to get healed instead. But honestly, with the power out and them not having a fucking backup generator or anything, it's not like Pikachu can get healed. He must know this, as when the gang go to Officer Jenny to ask for directions to the power plant, and thank God she's actually helpful for once. There's not everyone in the town being useless. Pikachu comes out of bushes, revealing that he snuck out of the center, really wanting to come. Ash decides to let him when Misty deduces that Pikachu was scared that the gang wouldn't come back for him. But if that's the case, I don't really know if that makes sense. I mean, Ash and Pikachu are super close, right? Why would Pikachu have doubts that he would become abandoned? If he was scared that they wouldn't come back because they were about to get ambushed by some Grimer or something, then they should have made that more clear. But if Pikachu was concerned for Ash's safety, it's quite ironic, as when he jumps into Ash's arms, when he lets him come along, he shocks him due to his cheeks still acting up, so he almost killed him anyway. Which the same Shadow from earlier observes. Meanwhile, Team Rocket have somehow not died despite losing their oxygen, and have managed to make it back to the surface. Meowth must be a fucking medical genius of some kind, but just doesn't want to reveal his secrets, much like there's likely a cure for cancer, but no one would reveal that, as too much money would be at stake. Meowth then reveals that he has a plan B to try and capture Pikachu that doesn't involve Team Rocket sacrificing themselves. So why didn't he just go with this plan to begin with then? Does he hate Jesse and James? I think he must. Meanwhile, the gang arrive at the power plant, which seems abandoned, and they manage to locate the central control room on a map and go there so that they can attempt to fix the power. But on their way there, the shadowy figure from earlier appears behind Misty and freaks her out. Ash assumes that she's just being paranoid and an annoying bitch like she usually is, which causes Brock to try and break up the fight that almost ensues, tired of their constant fighting. The shadowy figure then appears behind Ash, leading both Brock and Misty to spot it, but Ash to deny that it exists, likely assuming that it was just Misty and Brock being their usual paranoid selves over potential ghosts. And if anyone knew that ghosts weren't harmful, to be fair, it was Ash, if you remember his situation with Gengar, Haunter, and Ghastly. But Ash's carelessness pisses Misty off, as he calls out for whoever was behind them to reveal themselves, which the Shadow eventually does, sneaking up behind Pikachu. The gang gets freaked out as they see the creature's shadow, so Ash decides to use his Pokedex to identify it, and it's identified as a Magnemite. This leads Ash to calm down with it only being a Pokemon, and he goes to capture it. Ash gets annoyed though, as the Magnemite pays him no attention, only caring about Pikachu, trying to seduce it, appearing to be in love with it for some reason. Ash tells Magnemite to back off, because no one likes a goddamn sex offender, bro, and thankfully the Magnemite listens, although it still stays close by. Despite the Magnemite being dealt with, the gang now face a new problem, as an immensely stinky stench fills the room. It's revealed to be caused by a whole bunch of Grimer, who are on their way to go block the water flow with the other Grimer. As the gang plug their noses due to the stench, Brock reminds them that they probably shouldn't do that, as that disrespects the Grimer, and that could piss them off. This leads Ash to compliment the Grimer's smell, wanting to get on their good side, but Misty just can't handle it, and comments how much they stink. This makes the gang freak out, as it causes the Grimer to get angry, as Brock theorized, and their leader, being a Muck, which Ash identifies on his Pokedex, shows up and orders all of the Grimer to attack. This obviously leads Ash and the gang to run away as fast as possible, even though they really should just send out their Pokemon and fight. Anyways, while they're running, they fall over as they bump into the seemingly only two power plant workers in the entire power plant. Where's everybody else? But we don't have time to ask questions, as the Grimer and Muck are still swiftly approaching, so the workers and the gang run into the power plant control room, which they've located, and Brock barricades the door. The best he can, anyway, as Grimer begins to bust its way in, along with the rest of them. Ash, though he's reluctant since Pikachu is so sick, decides to instruct him to use his Thunderbolt against all the Grimer. But honestly, why wouldn't he just, once again, use one of his other Pokemon that wasn't injured? But anyways, the Thunderbolt does manage to do a little bit of damage, but not nearly enough to take out the whole squad. But thankfully, the sex offender Magnemite redeems itself, coming in with a whole bunch of other Magnemite and Magneton, and shocking the hell out of all the Grimer, including the ones that were currently blocking the water from getting to the plant, which causes the power to come back on. Let's go, the city is safe again. However, though, the Muck wasn't defeated by the electricity, only the Grimer. So, Pikachu and Magnemite decide to do one final attack, which, if only being focused on the Muck instead of on all the Grimer, is enough to take it out. Ash then takes the opportunity to catch the defeated Muck in a Pokeball, adding yet another Pokemon to his roster. But despite all the Grimer being defeated, the really bad smell is still potent, and it causes Ash to realize that the main source of the smell is Muck, even through its Pokeball. This annoys Ash, as it basically renders Muck impossible to use. Misty and Brock then comment on how Pikachu is finally acting a lot better, having got over its sickness, likely due to staying the night at the center. So at least Nurse Joy was good for something. However, she clearly wasn't very knowledgeable, as it's the power plant workers who inform Ash and the gang of what happens when an electric Pokemon builds up too much electricity, which is that it becomes magnetized. This explains why Magnemite was so attracted to the Pikachu, as being a literal magnet, Magnemite was obviously attracted to anything that was magnetized. My question, though, is why do workers at a hydro power plant know more about this than a literal nurse? Anyways, since Pikachu is no longer sick, it's no longer magnetized, so Magnemite is no longer interested. So Pikachu doesn't have to deal with the sex offender anymore. Let's go! That's not the only good thing that comes out of Pikachu not being magnetized, though, as he's also able to unintentionally thwart Team Rocket's plan B, which was, knowing that Pikachu was magnetized due to the sickness, Meowth planned to use a magnet on their submarine to pull it in and capture it. Of course, when they try this now, the only Pokemon that are attracted to the magnet are the Magnemite and Magneton, and all of their combined weight, as there's like over 100 of them, causes the sub to sink, ending Team Rocket's plan very quickly for today's episode, which is nice. Ash and the gang then say goodbye to Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny, who vow to restore Grindy City to its former glory and clean it up, ending the pollution, as they have come to the conclusion that the reason why there was so many Grimer gathering there was because of how dirty the town was, as they're attracted to the poison. Happy that Nurse Joy is finally taking some initiative, Ash and the gang continue on their journey to the next destination, but not before Ash decides to send Muck over to Professor Oak's lab with Krabby, as he can't use him anyway due to the immensely bad smell, which even Professor Oak makes note of.